Welcome back to another episode. Let's just forget all the formalities today and get right into it. So, my partner and I recently went away, and the first few days were so hard. So hard. We had a difference of perspective on something that is highly triggering for me. I won't go into what it was exactly because that's not the point of this share. We both got so lost in our own stories. You know how that goes, where you talk and talk, but nobody's really hearing because you're just both so caught up in your own stuff. Yeah, that was us. That was us. We talked until we were frustrated and exhausted, and our wounded inner children were screaming so loud inside of our own heads that we just couldn't hear each other. And there was no disrespect, and we didn't say awful things, but this particular topic brings up our shit, and this is not new for us. We done did this before so many times. We both had to take some space. I mean, actual physical distance, because we just couldn't hear each other anymore. So we took the space we needed so that we could really talk. And in case you're wondering, we did not come to some magical resolution, but we did find a place of acceptance. We both accept that our perspectives are different, and that's okay. He's not wrong. I'm not wrong either. And we are also looking for a therapist to help us work through it because this relationship matters to both of us. It matters enough for us to do the work. But all of that really got me thinking about relationships aren't actually about all of the romanticized ideas that we are presented about riding off in the sunset together. That is not what they're about. Relationships also not about like finding someone who completes you or who makes everything better. But they are containers for healing and growth. And sometimes, maybe all the time, growth is painful. It sometimes hurts. Terry Real, another one of my favorite relationship therapists, says, and this is a direct quote, "Our intimate relationships challenge us like nothing else. We lose it time and time again, but it's in these moments that we find the opportunity to grow together." In other words, relationships are labs. They are laboratories where we get to work out all of our stuff and all those patterns that we learned back in the day, all those defenses that we built to protect ourselves. They show up in our closest relationships because that's exactly where they're meant to show up. I mean, where else are you going to face your deepest fears about abandonment or being too much or struggling with trust? Where else are you going to work that shit out? Where else are your buttons going to get pushed in just the right way to make you look at yourself? And sometimes it's, romantic relationships, but this often comes up with our children. It sometimes comes up with our besties. Like, the close relationship is not defined by romance. All of our close relationships bring up our shit. Esther Perel talks about how when we're in relationship struggles, we have this tendency to flatten our partners, to make them into these simple-minded characters in our story. And suddenly they're either all good or all bad. And we forget the nuance. I was so there with my partner. Here's a direct quote from Esther. "This is human. This is not you are good, you are bad, you are flawed, you are, filled with shame. This is what we do. And I think that normalizing that conflict is intrinsic to relationships. There is no relationship that grows without a modicum of fight, friction, discord, duking." Okay? I mean, that's real, right? It just doesn't exist. Think about the last time you got into it with your partner or someone close to you. Was it really about the thing you were arguing about? Or was it about something deeper? Was it about feeling unseen or worried about being left or questioning whether you really matter to them? Like, that's the type of shit that comes up. In my situation, what looked like a disagreement about one specific thing was actually touching on some really deep stuff for both of us about not feeling good enough, or in my case, feeling like I was too much. It was about feeling safe, feeling secure. Basically, it was about triggers. And as I've said before, triggers are just evidence of old pain. But when we get so caught up in defending our positions, we lose sight of each other's humanity. But here's what makes a relationship a container for healing instead of just a repeat of old wounds. It's the willingness to stay curious, to ask ourselves what's really going on beneath the surface, to remember that our partner is also having their own, equally complex, messy experience, just like we are. This kind of self-reflection is not comfortable because it's so much easier to point fingers or make the other person responsible for our feelings. And sometimes they are really being assholes, just for the record. Sometimes they are being assholes. But even then, we still must ask ourselves, what's getting activated in me right now? What am I making this mean? Marianne Williamson has this beautiful perspective about how relationships are assignments for growth. And while that sounds so lovely, the actual experience can feel like you are being dragged. It feels like you're being dragged through emotional gravel because growth isn't pretty. It's messy and it's uncomfortable, and sometimes it makes you want to lace up your sneakers and run. But when there's love, when love is the foundation, and I'm talking about real love, not just attraction or attachment, but when both people are willing to look at their own stuff, that's when the going gets good. Because those triggers are doorways, the conflicts are opportunities, and even the hard conversation becomes a way for us to know each other more deeply, more truly, more wholly. And that's what seems to happen with me and my partner all the time. And in this particular instance, once we had some space, once our nervous system settled down, we could see that this trigger between us isn't going away. But it is here to teach us something about ourselves, about each other, about how we can grow individually and together. And that's really the heart of what I wanted to share today, is that when we understand that relationships are containers for healing and growth, everything is different. And those moments that feel like we are being, that our hearts are breaking, maybe it's just that our hearts are breaking open to become more of who we're meant to be, right? Because love is choosing to stay present through the messy parts. It's knowing that discomfort might just be growth trying to happen. And if you are in a place of discord in any of your closest relationships, bless you. Bless you. But don't give up. Stay the course. Anything worth having is worth the effort it takes to have it. I love you.